Hi guys, I am talking to you right now from Fukuoka Airport. It is 8:21 in the morning and I am drenched in sweat. Let's just take a moment here to acknowledge that choosing to introduce a video component to this class during the summer when I was going to Japan was a terrible idea. But I refuse to let you guys suffer for my own stupidity. Um, Last week's quiz, which obviously never got up, I could not get access long enough to put together the quiz. I'm going to give you all a perfect score on it. I'll give you a 10 out of 10. And I'm going to roll some of the questions onto this upcoming week's test. So hopefully that'll even things out, and hopefully nobody will find that solution too disagreeable. Let's go ahead and jump back in where we left off with persuasion. I believe that we were just about to talk about the most important of the persuasion models. Don't forget to know some of the smaller models too, or not smaller, but less popular, especially cognitive response theory, which I kind of actually enjoy. Anyway, let's jump into elaboration likelihood model, ELM, by Petty and Cacioppo. This was one of the early theories in a wave of considerations about how people think about things, which was called a dual process. When we talk about dual process models, it basically means that in your head, there are a couple of different things that are going on, and there are a couple of different ways that we process things, right? So with Petty and Cacioppo, they would say that persuasion depends on a person's likelihood to pay attention and think carefully about a message. So in other words, there are two ways that you are persuaded to do something. In the one route, if it's something that matters to you and something that you're likely to actually think about, that's called central processing. The other route is the peripheral route, and that's where it's something that you're not so likely to think all that much about, and that's when other variables are more interesting to you. We talked a little bit last week about heuristics, that those are going to be the things that appeal to you and drag your attention. So that's basically what they're positing, is that there's these two different routes to persuasion. Now, with the central route, it actually requires some effort on your part, right? You have to think about what's being said. There's an argument that's being made, and you're considering that argument and mulling over that argument. Now, this one takes time, right? It's not good for making snap decisions. However, the theory would state that it's better for long-term attitude change, and that's probably the case, but there's some mixed data on that. Excuse me. The peripheral route to persuasion is other things that don't require much cognitive effort, right? How much do I trust the person who's talking? How good looking is the person who's talking? Is this message in some way viscerally appealing to me? And that gives you very short-term success, but cues weaken over time, theoretically. Some things from peripheral processing can really stick, and we'll talk about that probably in a future week, actually. Lots of advertisements make use of persuasive devices. You can see the picture in the PowerPoint of the doctor offering a testimonial, and of course we know that those aren't real doctors, but it doesn't matter that we know that those aren't real doctors. If I replaced that image with a hobo, you wouldn't take it seriously, even though you might know that that guy wasn't really a hobo. Right? These subtle cues can actually have a pretty big influence on us. Now, when they're looking at it, there are particular variables that you can employ to try to additionally motivate someone to process something centrally. The primary thing is that they have to believe that for some reason what you are saying is relevant to them. Right? Those are called motivating variables. Lots of questions about that involve you, right? Lots of you statements, right? You ask questions so that they're thinking about things, right? And you want to think about your audience in such a way as to be able to make it super relevant to them. It's COM 100 all over again, right? ELM's motivating variables is COM 100. However, just as useful and I don't want to say insidious, but you can use these things for good cause, right? Would be the peripheral cues, right? You've got likability and attractiveness, right? You don't want to look like a slob when you're doing a persuasive speech, or when you're trying to render a persuasive argument, or when you're preparing a piece of persuasive film, or whatever it is that you're doing. Credibility of source, like we talked about with the doctor, the number of arguments contained in a message, the optimal argument times to be repeated is 3 if you want to get the most bang for your buck. The length of the arguments can be important, and we have listed the bandwagon effect, right? That's the perception that everybody else already thinks this, right? If you can get people to believe that most people believe something or do something, then you can get them to do that. Actually, there was an experiment a while ago which took all of these heuristic variables and put them on little hotel placards, right? And the hotel placards were asking people to please reuse their towels, and so using each of these things, they gave a persuasive argument that you should reuse your towels, and the one that was most effective was the one that said 70% of the people who stay at this hotel will reuse their towels when we ask them to. Please reuse your towels. Pretty simple and straightforward, and very effective. Anyway, there are a lot of variables when it comes to the persuasion process in ELM. You've got source variables. Those are the variables that are under the speaker's control, under your control if you're producing the media, right? You've got message variables, and again, those are somewhat under your control, right? You're choosing your message. Now, the elements where that escapes you a little bit is in how the audience elaborates upon your message. And then there's the recipient variables, which is how they're feeling and their mood and their attitude towards things. Let's go ahead and jump ahead then to the theory of reasoned action and the theory of planned behavior. I mentioned last time that both of those were basically the same thing in a lot of ways. Theory of planned behavior just has an additional variable tacked on to it that distinguishes it from the theory of reasoned action. Right? The theory of reasoned action is really useful. It's probably wrong, but it's still useful, right? And I want to take a break, actually, real quick, to just talk about that idea about science being wrong but useful, right? Sometimes we do things for scientific investigation purposes, knowing that we're incorrect, okay? Think about when you were in 3rd grade, and they talked about what an atom looks like. And they showed you the picture, and there was the nucleus with neutrons and protons and neutrons in the middle, and spinning in nice little orbits around it were electrons. And they taught you that, and that was your conceptualization of an atom. Then you got to high school, and they told you, well, it's not actually little orbits of atoms, of electrons. It's actually more like an electron cloud. And then you got to college, and they told you, well, it's not really like a cloud of electrons. It's actually more like areas and zones of probability, and those electrons can bilocate within those. And you know what? When they told you that, that was a lie too. It was a process of useful lies to get you closer and closer eventually to the truth. But, you know, your teacher in 3rd grade was under no illusion that that was how an atom actually looked or worked. But they taught you that anyway because it was a useful instruction, right? So we often do things knowing that they're incorrect because they're useful. When we launch people on rockets to the moon, the calculations we use are based on the Earth being the center of the universe. Now, NASA doesn't forget that the sun is actually the center of the universe. They use Earth as the center of the universe because it makes the math easier, right? So we do things because they're useful. Theory of reasoned action is useful because it's so simple. It's only really based on 2 criteria, right? That go into how a person is going to behave. First part is a person's attitude towards the behavior itself, right? Is this a good thing to do? Is this a bad thing to do? And then perceptions about other people's views of that behavior, right? Will other people assess me as a good or a bad person for doing this behavior? will other people know if I do this behavior? Now, the theory of planned behavior adds one variable to it, like I said, and it's also based on a perception of your control over the behavior. Is it an easy thing to do, or is it difficult to do? Right. So, let's say you're chubby like me, and you're going to be going to your in-laws' place, and they're all skinny. Like all of my family is skinny and looks terrific, and I'm 6'2" and pretty heavy. So uh, They've got the greatest bakery I've ever been to in their area, and it's called the Cold Spring Bakery. The peanut donuts there, so good, so good. Anyway, um, I know that I should not eat those peanut donuts. Uh, I've got an attitude towards that behavior. I think it would be a bad idea for me to eat those. I know other people have perceptions towards me based on my weight, right? That goes to heuristic credibility. The better looking you are, the more persuasive and credible you are. And yet, when I get to Cold Spring, I'm going to eat a peanut donut, and I can just tell you that right now. And it doesn't matter that both of those things were negative. Why? Well, because I kind of feel like I can't help myself. Controlling myself would be too difficult, and so that overrides those two other considerations. And I'm going to eat my donut. You could think about it lurking like that, right? Any persuasive tactic can be plugged into that model. It's overly simplistic. It doesn't always work, but it makes sense. And the fact that it is so simple uh, kind of lends itself to it, even though it is wrong. All right, that's the end of the persuasion section. We're going to pick up with the next chapter, but I think I am going to get ready to get on my flight. All right, I'll catch you guys in a bit.